Admiral Vexthor of the Meridian Collective stood motionless before the quantum display, his iridescent scales reflecting the emergency lights that pulsed throughout the bridge of the Eternal Sovereign. 300 cycles of uncontested dominion over the spiral arm had bred certainty into every fiber of Meridian society. Yet in the last 6 hours, that certainty had begun to crack. The object of his attention hung in the void 10,000 kilometers ahead, a vessel of unfamiliar design, its dark hull seeming to absorb rather than reflect the light of nearby stars. The humans called it the HMS Defiant, though the Meridians had only learned this designation after it had reduced 2 of their patrol cruisers to drifting debris. "Impossible," Vexthor whispered, his secondary breathing channels constricting with tension. "Show me the weapon signature analysis again." First Sensor Officer Ixel manipulated the crystalline control interface with practiced precision. "Admiral, our readings remain inconsistent. The human vessel appears to be generating localized disruptions in the quantum field itself. Our defensive matrices they were never designed to counter such weapons." The admission of technological inadequacy seemed to physically pain Ixel, whose scales darkened in shame. In 3 centuries of expansion, the Meridian Collective had never encountered a species whose military technology approached their own. Their crystalline-based quantum technology had made them unstoppable, their fleets invincible. Until today. "Signal the rest of the battle group," Vexthor ordered, his voice steady despite the uncertainty churning in his primary stomach. "Full combat formation. Let us show these humans the true might of the collective." The response was immediate. 5 massive warships, each nearly twice the size of the human vessel, moved into attack position. Their crystalline hulls shimmered with stored energy, weapon systems charging to levels that could reduce small moons to asteroid fields. "Human vessel is maintaining position, Admiral," Tactical Officer Zenner reported. "Their energy emissions are fluctuating in patterns we cannot predict. They appear to be waiting." Vexthor's primary eyes narrowed while his secondary set tracked the tactical displays. The human chip's behavior defied established combat doctrine. No species had ever faced a full Meridian battle group without either retreating or attempting to overwhelm them with superior numbers. "Open a communication channel," he commanded. "Let us see if they understand the gravity of their situation." The quantum display shifted, revealing the bridge of the HMS Defiant. Vexthor had expected to see chaos, fear, or at least tension. Instead, he found himself watching a scene of remarkable calm. Human crew members moved with practiced efficiency between holographic interfaces that seemed to respond to thought as much as touch. At the center stood their commander, a female human whose dark uniform bore minimal ornamentation. "Admiral Vexthor," she spoke, her voice carrying an authority that transcended species. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran naval ship Defiant. I trust our earlier demonstration has convinced you to accept this dialogue." The casual reference to the destruction of his patrol ships sent a wave of anger through Vexthor's body, causing his scales to flash crimson. "You have committed an act of war against the Meridian Collective, Captain. Your ship is outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender now, and we will ensure your crew is treated according to our protocols for conquered species." A slight smile crossed Captain Chen's face, an expression Vexthor found impossible to interpret with certainty. "Admiral, I don't believe you understand the situation. We are not here to surrender. We are here to negotiate the terms of your withdrawal from the Arcturian sector. The beings you call conquered species have requested our assistance, and the Terran Commonwealth has agreed to provide it." Vexthor's secondary hearts nearly stopped. The sheer audacity of the human statement threatened to overwhelm his emotional control. "You dare? One ship against a Meridian battle group. Your species truly is primitive if you believe." "Admiral," Chen interrupted, her smile fading. "Your scanning technology is impressive, but limited. The Defiant is not alone. We simply choose to remain visible as a courtesy during negotiations. Would you like us to reveal the rest of our fleet?" As if in response to her words, Proximity alarms began screaming across the bridge of the Eternal Sovereign. Space itself seemed to ripple as quantum distortions blossomed around the Meridian formation. Vex-Thor watched in horror as his tactical display revealed the truth. They were surrounded by shadows in space, areas where their sensors simply couldn't penetrate. The humans had mastered quantum stealth technology. The implications staggered him. "The choice is yours, Admiral," Captain Chen continued. "We can demonstrate our full capabilities, or we can discuss the future of this sector like rational beings. What's it going to be?" For the first time in his long career, Admiral Vex-Thor of the Meridian Collective felt something he had never expected to experience. Fear. Pride overrode fear in the end. Admiral Vex-Thor of the Meridian Collective had spent too many cycles establishing his reputation to bend before an inferior species, regardless of their technological surprises. His command brought the full might of his battle group to bear on the HNS Defiant, crystalline weapons charging to levels that could shatter small moons. "Last warning, Captain Chen," he broadcast, his scales shifting to the deep purple of absolute authority. "Surrender or be destroyed." The response came not in words but in action. The Defiant's hull began to pulse with lines of blue energy, and space itself seemed to warp around the vessel. Vex-Thor's sensor officers screamed in alarm as their quantum scanning arrays suddenly went dark. Multiple spatial anomalies detecting. First Sensor Officer Ixel called out, his scales pale with confusion. "They're generating some kind of localized reality distortion field." Vex-Thor had only moments to process this information before the Defiant moved, but it didn't move like any ship he'd ever encountered. Instead of traditional propulsion, the human vessel seemed to ride waves in space-time itself, slipping between his carefully positioned warships as if they were standing still. Impossible speeds. Tactical Officer Zena reported, her crystalline interface crackling with interference. "They're somehow manipulating gravity tow." The rest of her sentence was lost as the Defiant unleashed its first true attack. Beams of concentrated gravitational force lanced out from its hull, not targeting the Meridian ships directly, but rather the space around them. The fabric of reality buckled and twisted, creating shear forces that no material, not even the Collective's vaunted crystal technology, could withstand. Two of Vex-Thor's destroyers shattered instantly, their crystalline structures torn apart at the molecular level. The crews didn't even have time to scream as their ships dissolved into clouds of glittering dust. "Return fire," Vex-Thor roared, his command causing the remaining ships to unleash their full arsenal. Space lit up with quantum-enhanced energy beams and crystalline torpedoes, enough firepower to annihilate a small fleet. None of it touched the Defiant. The human ship danced through the barrage, its gravity manipulation technology allowing it to bend the paths of incoming fire away from its hull. Each attack that should have struck home instead curved harmlessly into the void, as if space itself was conspiring to protect the vessel. "Admiral," Captain Chen's voice came through clear despite the chaos of battle. "Your weapons are impressive, but fundamentally flawed. You've built your entire civilization around manipulating quantum states, never realizing there were deeper principles at work in the universe." As if to demonstrate her point, the Defiant executed another impossible maneuver, seeming to fold space around itself before reappearing directly above the Eternal Sovereign. Vex-Thor felt his ship shudder as gravitational forces began to tear at its structure. "The quantum realm is just the surface," Chen continued, her voice carrying a hint of what might have been pity. "Humanity had to learn to think differently to survive. We couldn't match the raw power of species like yours, so we went deeper. We learned to manipulate the fundamental forces that shape reality itself." Alarms blared throughout the Eternal Sovereign as structural integrity began to fail. Vex-Thor watched in horror as the crystalline walls of his mighty flagship started to crack under pressures they were never designed to withstand. "Hold," he called out, his pride finally giving way to survival instinct. "Stand down, all weapons. We will discuss terms." The gravitational assault ceased immediately. though the Defiant maintained its position of dominance above the Meridian flagship. Through the quantum display, Vexthor could see Captain Chen nod in acknowledgement. A wise decision, Admiral. Though I suspect this is only the beginning of your education about humanity. You see, what truly makes us dangerous isn't our technology. What then? Vexthor found himself asking, despite his shame. Our adaptability. Our drive to overcome limitations. But most importantly, our ability to imagine possibilities that other species dismiss as impossible. The weapons we use today, they were theoretical concepts in our science fiction stories less than a century ago. We made them real because we refused to accept the boundaries others had set. As Vexthor processed these words, new alarms began to sound. The shadow spots in space that had appeared earlier were moving, revealing more human ships emerging from their perfect stealth. The Meridian Collective's greatest battle group had been surrounded the entire time, their fate decided before the first shot was fired. The age of Meridian dominance had ended not with a grand battle between equals, but with a demonstration of just how far behind they truly were. And as Vexthor's scales shifted to the gray of total submission, he realized this was only the beginning of humanity's reshaping of the galaxy. The quantum display chamber aboard the Eternal Sovereign had been converted into a makeshift diplomatic room. Admiral Vexthor sat rigid, his scales shifted to a neutral tone that belied the turmoil in his mind. Across from him, Captain Sarah Chen of the HMS Defiant seemed perfectly at ease, her small datapad the only technology she had brought to these negotiations. Your empire spans 300 systems, Chen said, scrolling through data on her pad. In each one, you've subjugated the native species, forcing them to adapt to your crystalline technology and conform to Meridian social structures. We brought order, Vexthor responded, his secondary breathing channels flaring. Stability. Progress. You brought stagnation, Chen corrected. Every species you conquered was forced to abandon their own technological development, their own unique approaches to understanding the universe. Do you know what humanity discovered when we began reaching out to these worlds? Vexthor remained silent, his primary eyes fixed on the human, while his secondary set tracked the subtle movements of her security detail. We found innovation dying. Brilliant minds forced to work within the constraints of your crystalline systems, unable to explore other possibilities. But more importantly, we found something else. Resistance. Hidden research. Underground networks of scientists and engineers sharing forbidden ideas. The Admiral's scales flickered with surprise before he could control his reaction. Chen smiled, noting the tell. Yes, Admiral. While your collective claimed total dominion, seeds of rebellion were growing in the shadows. All they needed was proof that your technology wasn't invincible. That's why we chose this particular demonstration. The strategic implications hit Vexthor like a quantum surge. You wanted witnesses, he whispered. Our transmission protocols. We broadcast all major military engagements back to the collective to demonstrate our power. And now every subjugated world has seen that power broken, Chen confirmed. But that's not the most interesting part. Would you like to know what truly surprised us about your civilization? She tapped her datapad, and a holographic display sprang to life between them. It showed detailed schematics of Meridian technology, but with annotations Vexthor had never seen before. Your crystalline technology has potential far beyond what you've achieved, Chen continued. You found one path, quantum manipulation, and stopped looking for others. Your own scientists proposed dozens of alternative applications, theories that could have revolutionized your understanding of space-time. But they were ignored because they didn't fit the established paradigm. Vexthor's scales shifted to deep blue, the color of profound disturbance. How do you know about those theoretical proposals? Those archives are sealed by the highest council. Because your conquered peoples remembered them. Scientists from species you subjugated centuries ago had access to those archives before they were sealed. They passed the knowledge down, waiting for the day it might prove useful. Humanity didn't just bring advanced technology to this conflict, Admiral. We brought every forbidden idea, every suppressed innovation, every alternative path that your collective abandoned in favor of orthodoxy. The implications staggered him. Not only had humanity defeated their greatest weapons, but they had also uncovered the collective's greatest secret, its systematic suppression of innovation that didn't conform to established patterns. The ships that surrounded us, Vex Thor said slowly, his tactical mind finally putting the pieces together. They weren't all human vessels, were they? Chen's smile widened. Now you're beginning to understand. Those ships represent a coalition of species, each contributing their unique insights to overcome your dominion. Humanity didn't conquer the Meridian Collective, Admiral. We simply showed your subject species that resistance was possible. The Admiral's scales rippled with patterns of distress as he realized the true extent of the humans' victory. They hadn't just demonstrated superior technology. They had shattered the very foundation of Meridian authority. The belief in their technological supremacy had kept their empire stable for centuries. Without it, the collective will fall, he stated, not a question but a recognition of inevitable truth. The collective as it exists now. Yes, Chen agreed, but that's not our goal. We're not here to destroy your civilization, Admiral. We're here to help it evolve. Your species has incredible potential, locked away behind centuries of rigid thinking and enforced conformity. We want to help you unlock it. And if we refuse, then you'll face not just humanity, but every species you've ever subjugated, now armed with technology that makes your quantum weapons obsolete. But I don't think it will come to that. Your people are too intelligent to choose extinction over evolution. As if to emphasize her point, new data began streaming across her holographic display. Reports from across Meridian space of crystalline ships standing down, of subject species rising up not with weapons, but with long-hidden innovations that transformed Meridian technology in ways that defied centuries of doctrine. The Shadow War had already been won, Vex Thor realized. While the collective had focused on military might, humanity had waged a revolution of ideas, and there could be no defense against that. The Eternal Sovereign's communication chamber erupted into chaos as the Meridian High Council's transmission filled the quantum displays. Admiral Vex Thor stood at attention, his scales carefully maintained at a neutral tone despite the storm of accusations being hurled at him. You have doomed us all. Counselor Zexterra's image thundered, her ceremonial crystals flashing with rage. 3 centuries of dominion, undone by your incompetence. Respectfully, Counselor, Vex Thor responded, his voice steady. I suggest you review the tactical data from our engagement. The humans didn't just defeat us. They revealed the fundamental flaws in our entire approach to technological development. Silence, another council member demanded. You dare defend these primitives. They and their coalition of rebels must be crushed immediately. We are mobilizing the Grand Fleet as we speak. Captain Chen, who had remained a silent observer until now, stepped forward. I wouldn't recommend that course of action, counselors. The council chamber fell silent, the Meridian leaders seemingly shocked by the humans' audacity in addressing them directly. Chen took advantage of their surprise to continue. While we've been having this discussion, human engineering teams have been working with your subjugated species across 20 systems. Would you like to see what they've accomplished? She activated her datapad, and new holographic displays sprang to life. They showed Meridian crystalline technology being transformed, integrated with principles that the collective had dismissed centuries ago. In system after system, ships and installations that had been cornerstones of Meridian power were being upgraded by the very species they had conquered. Your crystalline technology was never the problem, Chen explained. It was your refusal to let it evolve. Look at what's possible when you combine your quantum manipulation with gravitational engineering, with biochemical computing, with dimensional folding theory. The displays showed Meridian ships now moving with the same impossible grace as human vessels, their crystalline structures pulsing with new forms of energy. But more shocking were the crews, mixed species working together, each contributing their unique perspectives to push the boundaries of what was possible. "This is abomination," Counselor Xterra declared, but there was a tremor in her voice. "Our technology is pure, perfect in its current form." "Nothing is perfect," Vexthor found himself saying, his scales shifting to the rare pattern that indicated profound revelation. "That was always our greatest flaw, believing we had achieved perfection, that there was no need for further growth." A younger council member, whose name Vexthor couldn't recall, leaned forward. "These improvements, they're all based on theories our own scientists proposed generations ago." "Theories that were suppressed," Chen confirmed, "because they challenged the established order. But your ancestors knew there were other paths to explore. They saw the potential that you chose to ignore." The council chamber erupted into argument, but Vexthor could see the shift happening. The younger members were studying the displays with increasing interest, while the older traditionalists could only sputter their objections with decreasing conviction. "You don't understand what you're asking," one of the senior counselors finally said. "These changes, they would transform our entire society. The collective has maintained stability for centuries because of our unity of purpose, our adherence to proven principles. And that stability has become a cage." Vexthor responded, surprising himself with his boldness. "We called ourselves the collective, but we stopped collecting new ideas generations ago. We became static, rigid, while the universe continued to evolve around us." He gestured to the displays showing the transformed ships and installations. "This is what true collective wisdom looks like. Not forcing everyone to follow one path, but learning from all paths. The humans didn't come to destroy us. They came to remind us of who we used to be." Captain Chen nodded approvingly. "Your empire was built on the principle that your way was the only way. We're offering you the chance to build something greater. A true collaboration of species and ideas, with the Meridians as equal partners rather than conquerors." The council chamber had grown quiet, the members watching as more reports flooded in from across Meridian space. Everywhere, the pattern was the same. Their subject species weren't rising up in violent rebellion, but rather showing them what was possible when artificial barriers were removed. "The choice before you isn't between victory and defeat," Chen continued. "It's between growth and stagnation, between evolution and extinction. The universe is far vaster and more complex than any single species can comprehend alone. That's humanity's greatest discovery. That true strength comes from embracing diversity, not suppressing it." Vexthor watched his leaders' faces, seeing the moment when understanding finally began to dawn. The Meridian Collective stood at a crossroads, and for the first time in centuries, their path forward was not clearly marked. But perhaps, he realized, that uncertainty was exactly what they needed. One standard month after the confrontation that changed everything, Admiral Vexthor stood in the newly constructed Cooperative Research Center on the Meridian homeworld. His scales shifted through patterns of wonder as he watched teams of scientists from 24 species working together, their combined knowledge transforming theoretical concepts into reality before his eyes. The facility itself was a testament to the changes sweeping through Meridian society. Traditional crystalline architecture now merged seamlessly with other technological approaches, creating spaces that seemed to defy conventional physics. Quantum computers worked in parallel with biological processing systems, while gravity manipulation fields allowed for research that would have been impossible just weeks ago. "Remarkable, isn't it?" Captain Chen's voice came from behind him. "How quickly progress can happen when artificial barriers are removed." Vexthor turned to face the human who had catalyzed this transformation. "I never imagined," he began, then corrected himself. "No, that was precisely the problem. We stopped imagining possibilities centuries ago." They walked together through the research center, passing laboratories where former conquered species now worked alongside Meridian scientists as equals. The air hummed with the energy of discovery and innovation. "The Grand Fleet's refit is proceeding ahead of schedule," Vexthor reported, his scales showing pride of a different sort now. The integration of human gravitational technology, with our quantum systems has exceeded all projections, and the innovations suggested by the Arcturian engineers. He shook his head in amazement. We had their people calculating quantum trajectories for our ships for centuries, never realizing they had developed entirely new theories of spatial mathematics. Chen smiled. That's the thing about suppressing other species' innovations. You never know what you're missing. But I'm more interested in the social changes. How is the collective handling the transition? There was resistance at first, Vexthor admitted. 3 centuries of believing in our own superiority don't disappear overnight. But after the younger generation saw what was possible, he gestured to a nearby laboratory where a meridian crystalline specialist was working with a team of mixed species, their combined expertise creating something entirely new. And the council. The old guard has largely stepped down. The new council better reflects our transformed society. Representatives from all species, each bringing their unique perspectives. We're not the collective anymore. As of yesterday's proclamation, we're officially the Meridian Cooperative. They reached a vast observation deck overlooking the capital city. The skyline had changed dramatically, with new architectural forms reflecting the blending of different technological approaches. Ships of various designs moved through the air, their movements guided by principles that would have been considered impossible a month ago. You know, Chen said thoughtfully, when we first discovered your empire, there were those in our government who pushed for immediate military action. They saw your subjugation of other species as something that had to be stopped by force. What changed their minds? Our historians, actually. They pointed out that humanity's greatest achievements often came from finding ways to turn enemies into allies. We didn't want to just defeat the Meridians. We wanted to help you become something greater. Vexthor's scales shifted to a pattern of deep understanding. By showing us our own potential, you achieved more than a military victory ever could. Exactly. The universe is too vast and too complex for any one species to have all the answers. Humanity learned that lesson through centuries of our own conflicts and mistakes. We wanted to help you learn it without having to go through the same painful process. A commotion from one of the nearby laboratories drew their attention. A team of scientists had just successfully tested some new innovation, their excited voices mixing multiple species' languages as they celebrated together. There will still be challenges, Vexthor noted. Change at this scale doesn't come without opposition. Some colonies are resistant to the new order. Of course, Chen agreed. Progress isn't always linear. But look at what you've accomplished in just 1 month. Your civilization hasn't been weakened by these changes. It's been revolutionized. The Meridian Cooperative is already producing innovations that neither humanity nor the Meridians could have achieved alone. They watched as a new ship class rose from the construction yards below, a perfect fusion of multiple technological approaches. Its crystalline hull pulsed with quantum energy, while gravitational fields rippled around it, its very existence proving that there were always new possibilities to explore. You know what the most interesting thing is? Chen asked. We're already seeing human scientists and engineers requesting transfers to Meridian space. They're as excited about learning your quantum crystalline technology as your people are about gravity manipulation. This is just the beginning of what our species can achieve together. Vexthor's scales shifted to an entirely new pattern, one that had no traditional meaning in Meridian culture, but perfectly expressed the emotion of this moment. Perhaps that's the greatest lesson in all of this. True strength doesn't come from dominating others, but from learning from them. From growing together. Exactly, Chen smiled. And that's why humanity reached out to the stars in the first place. Not to conquer, not to dominate, but to learn, to grow, to become more than we were. As they stood there watching the new Meridian Cooperative take shape before them, Vexthor realized that this wasn't just the dawn of a new era for his people. It was the beginning of something far greater. A future where different species didn't just coexist, but collaborated to unlock the true potential of the universe itself. The age of the collective was over. The age of cooperation had begun.